Hi, Decoders. This week, we're looking right at the accusation that spirituality is used as a bypass towards the issues of the day. I don't know, that's a really big accusation. Let's explore it together. Hi, I'm Kiran Trace. Welcome to Humans Decoded, a story of hobbits, fairies, elves, dwarfs, gnomes, and humans. If you get lost at any point, there is a deep dive on all the different avatars in episode 1. It includes notes. Thank you for joining us in a fun little chat about the vast potential of our human makeup. Hi, Leela. Hi, Cami.
Hi, girls. Hi, Decoders.
Hey, great to be back with you all.
Oh.
I'm really excited to talk about this. But why do you guys want to talk about this?
Yeah, I just came back from a weekend course where I taught some workshops, and the theme was School of Peace. So they invited people from all over the world to talk about what peace meant for them. Like, we had some people from Gaza, some from the Ukraine, Iran, Afghanistan. They were shedding light, from an inside perspective on these conflicts, on the wars that are going on. And my workshop was about how peace starts with being at peace within your own body, like what it feels like to not fight inside of your own system, inside of your own body. And on Sunday morning, we had this inter-religious ceremony where there was an imam, there was a rabbi, a Hindu priest, a Catholic priest, a Protestant pastor, a UN representative, and even a shaman with his drums. And together they created this moment of just celebration of God. And it was so beautiful because to me it felt like, oh, this is what the dream of peace could look like. Like, we just come together and we don't have to negate our differences. Like, you can still sing your prayer in Arabic, for instance. You don't have to sing it in Swiss German. But we come together and we're sort of standing for the same thing. Like, we're united in God. And somehow that simple ceremony instilled such a deep sense of peace within myself. And I'm deeply inspired to talk about peace.
Yeah. I mean, these days, especially on the Instagram and the social media world, there's a lot of noise that spirituality is a kind of a bypass, and that we're bypassing these really important global issues like fascism, growing fascism in America, obviously the genocide in the Sudan and in Gaza, and people are just running to spiritual practice as a way to bypass essential actions. And that could not be more inaccurate. It's very ignorant, it's unskillful, and frankly, it's ridiculous. I was reminded today of a quote that Ram Dass had, which was, "The only thing you could do for me is to work on yourself. And the only thing I can do for you is to work on myself." It's kind of like throughout time, big changes came from the most awake beings. Like, even though those awake beings don't believe in the duality of a fight, those beings don't have a separation of me versus them. They have been the changemakers for that very reason. There's no identification of right and identification of wrong or evil and good, or these deep in just me versus you. So that means there's a capacity to see possibility and opportunity, because they're not engaged in the big fight. If you're engaged in the fight, if you're identified by some level of injustice, then that blinds you from seeing opportunities. You just cannot see all of the possibilities on the table when we're identified. So I would argue what they call bypass is in fact great contribution to peace and change globally, not just internally, externally. Because the movement of being identified with the problem, identified with this story of separation, right? This you versus me, right? Fascism versus democracy, when there's that separate story, what you're doing is creating an enormous blind spot, sadly. And that's contributing to a global collective field of hopelessness, separation, war, right versus wrong, righteousness, a vibe of problem, right? The fight is being echoed. Like if you put a loudspeaker next to someone who's initiating from their own internal story of injustice, there's actually, on the surface, it's like there's this right versus wrong. There's obvious. The deeper down you go, you start to hear these like terrors and war. It's just really a personal echo chamber of injustice being pushed out there.
Right. It makes me think of, like, for a moment, we had this lovely prayer group in the Kiran Trace community where we would come together and take these huge world events like climate crisis or, the war, the genocide in Gaza, for instance. And we would sit together in silence and just feel in our bodies what's the actual delicious, meaning what feels like this total yes, a total exhale in our bodies as a solution for the end of the genocide in Gaza. Like together we would then talk through that and just viscerally feel the beauty of it. And so by sitting together in this delicious field in our bodies, there were these very practical, very possible, and very tangible solutions that showed up. And I noticed during this weekend I mentioned before, of course, there were lots of activists and lots of people in their 70s that have been fighting for peace since forever. It was so driven from a belief system of justice. Like, this isn't just, we need justice in the world. It's even something they said. And I could just see and witness how when you come from that place, it doesn't lead to any tangible results. Like at the end of our weekend, we didn't come up with any concrete solutions. I was sad to leave like that. But these concrete, tangible solutions, they can only come from sitting in this quiet, delicious field. And I could feel like as the activists would present their opinions or present their solutions, how in their bodies or even in my body, as I listened to them, it felt quite tight and it wasn't super embodied actually. And that means like it's where the energy is all up in the head. It's like out there and very much in the external, what should change externally, as opposed to, like Kiran said before, what are we doing, what we were doing also in our little prayer group, which is just to ground, like grounded in our bodies. And then it felt like a spaciousness in the body, this sort of, the exhale that we always mention here on the podcast. And it feels like nourishment. That's what it feels like when you land in the delicious vision for something as complicated as a war, where it seems like there's no way out. But there is this very nourishing quality to it, to be in the delicious vision. And it's always surprising how simple it can really be.
This weekend I had some really good friends over, including my mother. And they were like, everybody was like 80 and really engaged activists. They love a protest. And I was laughing at them this weekend because they had both shared a time when they were on a vacation. One was on a cruise and then happened by a protest. And they was just like so excited to join in. And then they were echoing each other like, yes, like the other friend was like, she was on a cruise in Alaska and it happened by a protest in Juneau and was so excited to jump in and join, like spent the day, But when they were both talking about their love of it, what they were talking about was the love of doing something. It wasn't this pure inspiration, but it was this unworthy inside of themselves wanting to fight injustice, making them worthy. And it just makes me laugh. Like, it's like, okay, carry on. Go for it.
I can think of a more extreme example of that. And I have a very close family member who has been an activist for years. And he went so deep into the rabbit hole and into his research that he's convinced he's going to change the world. And he basically became an extremist in the process. So in his search for so-called justice and global peace, somehow everybody became an enemy. And now the politics get so dirty and there's so much division. And he's just so committed to this vision that any kind of connection around him has crumbled. So there's no pathway, just a commitment to, it's basically a hallucination that we're all really, really separate and that we need protecting from. And yeah, it makes any kind of connection with him really unsustainable because there's just so many filters.
I have some data points because in my private practice, I work with the CEOs and the CFOs and the founders of some very big companies, global companies, usually tech, biotech, healthcare, global distribution services. And these major companies are examining how technology is going to change the world. And when I'm working with these founders, they're all over the globe. They have this deep intention behind everything that sounds like, in order to change the world, in order to change the world, in order to change the world. And this makes me laugh. It reminds me of that TV show Silicon Valley. It had this hilarious sort of ongoing meme. It's a show about all these founders of tech. So there's like all, like the beat of tech is down there in Silicon Valley and all these, tech companies. And every single company in this show has this like mission statement in order to change the world. In order to change the world. So the show really pointed out this story in a funny meme. But there it is in reality. And the companies I work with are all over the globe. They're Sweden and Africa, Central America. And every one of these founders have some very revolutionary tech and resources to make global impacts, whatever the industry, energy-based, AI-based, etc. And it's right there in all of them. They're trying to change the world. And I have these data points of how often they walk past a real opportunity for enormous growth and impact. And they walk past it so often because they're blinded by the story called "In Order to Change the World." So they have this very kind of direct, like, I would sometimes call them, I speak in the language, so I'm like, you've got a little virus there with this code. And the code says, in order to change the world, in order to change the world. And therefore, you can't read the whole code on the table. It's glitching, So,
it sounds so innocent.
It does. It sounds really innocent, right? So obviously, decoders, this, like we would call it a belief system. And it's a belief system called not good enough, or NGE, as we say. And it's a belief system that has them walk past very real, very practical, very beautifully intelligent solutions life has offered up under these huge resourcing companies, and they are completely unaware that they're walking past it. I have worked with entire boards and watched in a whole board of very smart, very experienced people just walk right past kind of the obvious. And my job is sort of like yelling into this void to like try to point it out. I'm often like, wait. But what about? And they're like, must change the world. So like, I do have some proof, like, or data points anyways, of these beautiful opportunities that got moved past. So, what looks like today's activism, but if internally we draw a line all the way back to the initiating movement, we get some kind of injustice, not good enough, not safe, NGE, NS. And these movements in action look like today's activism is, versus what Leela just described as an actual peaceful event for real evolution. And this ceremony that has this diversity and inclusion and, multiple voices, not focused on what's different, but this sort of peace internally, peace externally, and that's sort of what you guys are talking about, what we do in our own practice with our prayer groups.
Yeah, the key to not walk past the opportunity or the possibility is to actually come into your body, to let awareness be in this moment. Like, as simple as that. We keep coming back to this, like, in your body, in this moment. Something I tell myself over and over again. So, and that's something that is so often not acknowledged from the activists. Like, I had the conversation with these people who are like, well, what is it serving the world peace if you feel good inside your own body? Like, they were maybe making a little fun of my workshop, as if I'm just bypassing the problems. And I'm like, no. This is how you can actually sense where the true solution would be. If you're not in your body, there's no way in hell you're not gonna know. Yeah, there's the virus blocking clarity. And it's not just like I'm feeling good inside of myself and I'm saying yes and amen to everything. And I want to bring back Kiran's point of like the most awake beings are the ones that are bringing the biggest changes in the world. And it makes me think of Jesus, who, I like to throw him in the mix every now and then. And he said something along the lines of, if somebody slaps me on the right side of my cheek, I also offer my left one, right? But then at the same time, he was also the one throwing out the money exchange tables from the temple, like being angry. And he wasn't just like, yeah, hit me in the face, I'm enduring everything, namaste. He was deeply political. Like his message or the message of God being present in the moment of the biggest weakness or suffering is deeply political. Like there's so much power to it. And yeah, the actual solution to any world problem, it can only ever come from awareness. It cannot come from any of our belief systems. Nope, as much as they try.
Well, I feel like it's time to visit the age-old question I hear from every satsang hall ever. And it's never a bad idea to revisit it. But what do we do about war? What about war, Kiran? What do we do about all the problems in the world? What do we actually do?
I think this podcast has given us a lot of tools and examples of what we do. Beginning with, coming into the body. They're separating the idea, like looking at that idea that there's separation, like what I'm doing on my meditation cushion to witness and be aware of thoughts and to be available to this quiet, beautiful, infinite field that seeps in is the same as what I do when I get up off the meditation cushion and I pick up, my dry cleaning, my groceries, my children, or if I pick up a placard, You know, where am I separating? Where does it become them versus me? Because there aren't these two things. It's not. There's one thing. And like what Leela has said so beautifully, the solutions come from that place, which isn't just on your meditation cushion. You know, in the grocery store, the solutions come from awareness, not our story. So the very first chink in this war, like external wars going on, the first real chink is when you stop going to war against yourself. Which doesn't mean, I love how Leela said that. It's not this like, okay, I'm all good, man. I'm all good, which is in this podcast, decoders, we would be calling a la-la. We'd be calling it a trance, a little bubbled off, you know, not fully showing up, not really grounded. But to actually bring awareness to these internal belief systems. Not good enough, NGE, not safe, injustice, like see them. Do not underestimate the impact of you no longer acting from these false belief systems. The more peace there is inside of you, the more peace there is outside of all of us. So there's an enormous impact of just living in peace, which is an internal healing process. And that is just a tremendous contribution. Good Lord. If all of us actually examined our injustice, are not safe, are not good enough, if we actually looked at it before we picked up the placard, before we sent all the emails, before we posted on Instagram about the fucking problem or yes. So what do? We cultivate a relationship to silence and this infinite radiant field of source. That's the biggest, and I might say only, contribution to peace you can make. You're cultivating a relationship that's a path to clarity, because that's the only place clarity comes from. It doesn't come from your emotional story. It doesn't come from your mental story. It doesn't come from your psychic story. It doesn't come from stories. It doesn't, because all those stories are actually rooted in a belief system and they are hardwired. So see them, bring that awareness. If you're going to pick up a placard and fight fascism before you've cultivated a very solid relationship to silence and your own belief systems, awareness, and seeing what's going on, then the only thing you're doing with your action is creating an echo chamber for war, an echo chamber externally mirroring your beliefs internally. That's the only thing that's going on. But when we create and cultivate a relationship to the field of silence, to this vast, infinite, radiant field, then it opens up a position to listen, to hear, not just your own bullshit and its stories, but what's alive, what's true, what's delicious. If every single being on the planet spent 10 minutes a day doing that, there would never be another war on this planet, because that's the most powerful tool there is. Now, I'm not saying that that's what everyone's karma is, and I'm not saying that's what we're supposed to do, but I am saying that I can't believe the ignorance of people saying that spirituality is a bypass, and I hear it all over the place. I hear it from leaders, I hear it from other teachers, but I'm just like, that level of ignorance is mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing. It's walking past Gandhi, Desmond Tutu, Martin Luther King Jr., Jesus, Buddha, Confucius. It's walking past all of that. It's walking past so many data points. It's like the list just goes on and on. Go find all the awake people in the world. Ramana Maharshi, he sat on a fucking mountain his whole life. But his contribution to peace is still echoing off of that. That being died in 1950, but his contribution to peace is still ringing through and bringing people to peace today. Anyway, that's my soapbox. Spirituality is a bypass. The ignorance of that statement, just rolling off that, is stomach turning to me.
Sidebar, I've actually been to Ramana Maharishi's ashram and the mountain that he sat in.
Wow.
And oh my goodness, it's like, it's alive. You just like enter like such a palpable field of presence. And you don't have to know Sanskrit, know the same language. You don't have to know anything about him, but you know there's something about this place. Anyway, I also remember a few years at a retreat with Kiran, we played with this process. She spent some time brainstorming with us a handful of pretty big global issues: immigration, the environment, safe housing for communities. And I remember we each picked a few of these issues, and then we collectively dreamed up different solutions and threw them up on a whiteboard. And I remember one of Kiran's beautiful ideas of imagining that a refugee could have $20,000 in their pocket, and then walking through the street, what do they each bring to the community? What would it look like if they're seen as contributors, if every immigrant had the value just by living there and being welcomed into their purpose? What would that look like? And if we saw people not as refugees, but as valuable investments to the development of their community. So from day one, every person being so valuable and an investment of some delicious contribution. So then everybody picked a solution that felt really delicious in their body throughout the kind of different global issues we were, tackling. And then we just took the time to dream it. And that meant dreaming it inside of our body, as Leela beautifully described. Like, there was a lot of presence. It was very, very grounded. And then just taking those solutions like through the body and really, really savoring them. And I remember for one of my friends, she shared after, her delicious was clear running water, and she lingered in the feeling of crystalline, life-giving water. Mine, the one that resonated with me, and I was like, oh, I really want to dream this, was black, rich earth, like really beautiful, potent hummus. And I remember feeling it through my feet, and it was almost like these golden roots growing out of my feet and touching the soil and connecting with the feeling of nourishment and the soil and the earth and the plants getting fed by this black gold. And for weeks after, I could just, even now, I could just rest in that feeling of so much nutrition. And it's like really kind of raw, essential form. And yeah, it's so yummy. And I don't know how that goes back into the world. Maybe my love of gardening, I don't know. But I know it's alive inside of me, at least.
Yeah, and hearing you talk us through it, it is bringing it into the world more, isn't it? Like, I feel it's so tangible. That's what we're pointing to. It's so tangible. And maybe it is a little uncomfortable to hear that, all it takes to actually contribute to world peace, if should you be interested in that, is 10 minutes of real silence. Like, I think because maybe it seems like, no, I'm just gonna go collect a bunch of signature for this petition and blah blah blah. I'm gonna go try to get the solution out there. But Kiran has this beautiful saying of, and we keep pointing to it over and over again in the podcast, like, if you wake up in the morning and you go to the mirror and you see your hair's a mess, you cannot straighten your hair in the mirror. You have to go to your own head. Like, it doesn't work otherwise. And yeah, so the real solution, it's not out there. It's here, right here. It's in our own beings, in your own being, in your own body. And that 10 minutes of actual silence per day is, I don't know, I would say it's a pretty low-key investment for a really big outcome. again, not to give that as a prescription, but that's one of the very concrete, tangible solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The image I'm getting is if our collective goal, say, was to clean the room, and then you come in shouting, we need to clean the room, everybody gather around, we need to clean the room. But you haven't looked at yourself, and you're actually caked in mud, tracking horseshit and all sorts of debris, smearing every surface that you touch. So what I'm hearing is that you don't get to skip yourself. It's like if you're out there with your placard and shouting, he's the enemy, chances are there's something really hurting inside of yourself that you're trying to fix out there. But you don't get to skip this being, because that's the whole point. That's your access. That's source itself as you. And it's not going to happen anywhere else because you are it. And there's nothing more magnificent on earth, on the planet, than to be able to realize that with your own eyes and your own knowing. To see that there's no world, that there's no other that you could possibly fight, that it's just yourself. And to really know that is to know love. And love would really rather not cut its own arm off. It doesn't want to fight. It wants to love.
I'm going to add that when you're there with this beautiful, just what you're saying is so beautiful, Cam, and the metaphors are just really sinking in. And, I'm already wanting to listen again to this. But I think the piece that we're trying to say here that Leela's bringing up with the mirror and Cami's drawing in here, right? Like, because if you come in and authentically, for real, face the things that you've swept under the carpet, this horse shit that's all over you, like actually face it and recognize that there's so much love, there's no fight, that mirrors into the world, because that's what the world is, a mirror. The world is this projection. So you want to clean that projection? Come inside and clear yourself of your horseshit.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'm on Instagram and I'm like, should I be doing more? But just like Kiran said, to rest, to have the courage to come back inside and rest as the one. I mean, that just shatters the illusion, and shattering the illusion is a type of activism. That's how actual transformation occurs.
Amen. And then when I share a story that was told in this interreligious ceremony I mentioned at the beginning, it's a story from the Talmud, which is a collection of Jewish scriptures. And it went like this. A rabbi asked his students, how can you tell the hour in which the night ends and day begins? Is it when you can tell a dog from a sheep from afar? Asked one of the students. No, said the rabbi. Is it when you can tell an apple tree from a birch? Asked another student. No, said the rabbi. But when is it then? Asked the students, getting a bit impatient. It is only when you see the face of any human and you see the face of your sister or your brother in that face. Until then, the night is with us, said the rabbi. And I would add, like, the night goes on until you see your own face in each and every face you meet. Like, then there is peace, then there's the day.
That's so beautiful, Leela. And I just want to add one thing. To live in peace is the most courageous thing you can do. It's very easy to fight. It's very easy to see another in the face that passes you by. But to actually live true peace, which isn't repression or avoidance, it is to live real peace in yourself, is courage. luckily, we all have that courage.
Wow. I don't know.
I don't know how to sign off, guys.
This feels so...
Juicy. Hopefully it's juicy to you too.
So true. Yes.
We love you all. We love your feedback, your notes, your letters, your questions. And we'll be here next week for some more juicy stuff.
See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We obviously love hearing what you think. Your feedback helps us make a better show for you to listen to. So feel free to comment, and you can do it at Facebook, which is the Humans Decoded podcast. And if you're not on social, you can always email any questions to us at outreach@kirantrace.com. And thanks for listening. We love you.